Story 1. Doctors working 24-hour shifts. With how much we know about how sleep deprivation affects the brain, I am surprised that we accept that as a norm. Story 2. Those bright blue-white LED headlights on every 2020 to 2025 SUV and truck are frustrating. I drive a small hatchback, and they are always aimed directly at my rearview mirror. Not to mention how blinding they can be as oncoming traffic approaches on a single-lane highway. It gives me a headache within 30 seconds. Story 3. Chiropractics. I had a neck manipulation last year that resulted in a stroke and very nearly killed me. After this experience, I discovered that this is a lot more common than I had ever heard of. Story 4. Hydrochloric acid is inexpensive, legal, and not age-restricted. I am a science teacher, and I needed concentrated hydrochloric acid for a demonstration. Normally, I order such items from a school or laboratory supplier, but I was in a difficult situation. A colleague suggested I try the hardware store. It turns out that 36% muriatic acid, better known as the maximum concentration for hydrochloric acid, which can corrode metal and create damage to surfaces, was about $8 per gallon. Additionally, you do not have to be a certain age or show identification. A 9-year-old can dissolve objects with the substance, but we restrict access to, spray paint. What? Story 5. Online gambling is a gray area to me. Many people are losing money on it who otherwise would not have access to gambling. I work with many individuals who bet on sports now, and I don't think it's good. There is something concerning about online betting and the way it is being promoted. Many people are going to go broke and become addicted right on their phones. Story 6. Intentionally misleading advertising. Final notice. Open immediately. Just kidding, it's a credit card offer. Story 7. Every time I ride my motorbike, which has as much brake horsepower as an average family car, I am amazed it is legal to have this much fun with instant death just a wrist twist away. Story 8. Driving a large motorhome without a special license can be challenging. They are as big as tractor trailers for which you need a commercial driver's license. Story 9. Alcohol. I am not suggesting that it should be illegal, but it is arguably as harmful or potentially more harmful than most illegal drugs. Story 10. I used to have hot sauce that was called The End. It was 9 million Scoville units. Tabasco, I think, is around 1,500 Scoville units for context. This stuff was so nuclear powerful that it could most definitely cause physical harm, especially if you were already compromised physically in some way. Story 11. Driving a U-Haul. Most people can barely drive a normal car, but it is totally acceptable to let you drive a 20-foot truck for the right price. Story 12. Headlights need regulation. Some of them leave blind spots in the eyes for several minutes. They are a legitimate danger. Story 13. Letting your teenager work in the international modeling industry. All the individuals on land are at fashion shows. Story 14. Whippets or nitrous oxide are usually sold as whipped cream makers. I worked in a smoke shop before resigning to quit nicotine, successfully quitting back in September. The shop sold tetrahydrocannabinol and other legal substances, as well as pipes and bongs. My direct supervisor oversaw the store, while the owner spent most of his time in the Middle East. The owner purchased whippets for us to sell, but I had permission from my direct supervisor to encourage people away from buying them, and we put them on a high shelf outside of most people's line of sight. Whippets deprive the brain of oxygen, creating a temporary high, and are as addictive as crack cocaine. However, they permanently kill brain cells, lower your IQ permanently, and can hospitalize or kill you quite easily. Because they are so addictive, users often feel compelled to huff them, which damages the brain. We were very vigilant about checking identification and warning people of the dangers. I may have sold one canister during my whole time there, but my small southern town has a major drug problem, and it was well known that certain local gas stations would sell whippets to teenagers. They should not be legal, and that's coming from someone who enjoys a bit of cannabis and even some mushrooms. I wouldn't touch whippets with a 10-foot pole. Story 15. Cigarettes, though surprised isn't the word I would use, are obviously influenced by money and lobbying. However, it remains concerning. Story 16. Medical advice without proper knowledge in medicine, such as nutritionists and chiropractors, can be problematic. This also applies to individuals in specific fields offering advice on matters far beyond their area of expertise. Story 17. Honestly, driving is something almost anyone can do. You can get a car and start driving around with very few instructions and not enough supervision. Story 18. Coal power plants near people. Coal dust is about as deadly as radioactive waste when you are constantly exposed to it. Story 19. Musk's associates walking into the Treasury and getting to look at everyone's Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, salary, personal information, etc. Story 20. All surgeries have risks. So if you perform them often enough, sooner or later someone is going to die. This is why we usually do not perform any kind of surgery without a good reason for it, except for infant circumcisions. Those we just do because every so often it can lead to the death of the infant due to allergic reactions, infections, and so on. This does not even address botched surgeries, which can result in a lifetime of problems, all for a procedure that most people will never need. Story 21. Giving everyone a driver's license should be a lot harder. So many people have zero business being on the road behind the wheel. Story 22. If we're being honest, alcohol can have significant effects on individuals and society. Even though I am a drinker, I absolutely understand why it was banned at one point. Story 23. Cigarettes can kill you in many different ways. There are many dangerous chemicals used in making them. If the government is not going to ban them, then they need to regulate what can be used in them. Cigarettes have killed my mother, father, sister, niece, some aunts and uncles. So I have a real hatred for them. Story 24. Hands down, tobacco. I have been an addict, and it is so incredibly hard to quit despite knowing all the negative side effects it brings. I wish I had never touched it. Story 25. An unelected billionaire is forcing his way into the United States Treasury and stealing the data and sensitive information of every American. Story 26. Whippets. They say they are selling it in a way that is so obvious it is for huffing, and anyone can buy it under the guise that it is a food product. Story 27. In Norway, doctors are approved to recommend treatment for people with myalgic encephalomyelitis, which is proven to make them sicker. In the worst case, bedridden. Not only are they approved to do so, but they are recommended to do so. The reason is powerful people who earn a lot of money promoting a cure for a disease with no cure. The downside of Norway is that it is also the case for many diseases. A lot of people commit suicide because of this. The government refuses to keep statistics. That way, they can say that it is not a problem. A public group actually did this for them, and they found that it, in fact, was a big problem. The government just said they were shocked, then did nothing to improve it. They decided to give sick people less money. So now more people committed suicide. Story 28. Bath salts. When I saw someone on the news in Florida chew a man's face off, it blew my mind that you could get that in a gas station. Story 29. That Delta 8, which isn't anything like cannabis, nearly put 3 of us in a psychiatric ward. My brother's wife thought it was a cannabidiol cake and didn't realize it contained Delta 8. It was the worst experience of my life. So, real cannabis in Texas is illegal, but Delta 8 is legal. Story 30. Professional football in the United States. So many men tossed into a meat grinder for our entertainment. So many life-changing injuries. Yes, they signed up for it, but the sport should be banned from youth leagues right on up to the Super Bowl. Story 31. Police are allowed to text and drive and use their computers while driving. There have been multiple high-profile incidents of them getting into crashes and killing innocent pedestrians while doing these things, yet they are still allowed to do it and completely immune from consequences. Story 32. The notion that it is acceptable to walk into a retail space, a brick-and-mortar store, wearing a ski mask and getting offended when asked to remove it. Story 33. My next post under this one was about a blind man who just obtained a concealed carry license. That is definitely something that scares me while apparently being legal. Story 34. I mean, alcohol is a very obvious one. But honestly, participating in traffic without proper knowledge of traffic rules, repetitive training, and checks to see if individuals are still fit to participate is concerning. This applies to all age demographics and vehicles, from bicycles to cars and even pedestrians. I personally experience this mostly with the elderly. They ride these electric bikes, go incredibly fast without a helmet, disregard traffic laws, and then get angry at me for an accident they almost caused. Or they drive 80 kilometers per hour on a 120 kilometers per hour highway. They cross streets while walking, not even looking to see if someone is coming. This is incredibly dangerous. Story 35. Violence in media. We cannot show half of a male or female genitalia, but it is fully legal to show explicit gore and death. Story 36. Sugar is so common in everyday meals and drinks. It is a legal drug that is the reason for many diseases. Your pizza? Sugar. That barbecue sauce? Sugar. That expensive pimp my coffee? Sugar. Sodas? Of course, sugar. Your healthy Caesar salad? And that delicious dressing? Sugar. Story 37. Cigarettes, plastic, industrial pollution, lead, asbestos, sewers. Siri, play Phil Collins. In the Air Tonight. Story 38. Oh, the chemical name is much longer, but you can buy it in smoke shops. It is an extract of kratom. I started taking this to help me get off of a pretty nasty oxycodone and heroin habit. First, it was a godsend, but now it is almost as expensive. And I swear I am sick more of the time because the half-life is so short. Plus, the withdrawals are honestly worse. Story 39. All-terrain vehicles. They look fun, and I'm sure they are, but it is concerning. My friend passed away at 24 in an all-terrain vehicle accident 6 months ago. In the days that followed, very little information was released about her death other than it being related to an all-terrain vehicle. I spent hours online, scrolling through the internet, hoping to find any details without disturbing her grieving family. Instead, I came across hundreds of all-terrain vehicle-related deaths and accidents in my area alone from the past few years. People of all ages, all levels of experience, passengers, drivers, and pedestrians. All-terrain vehicles are incredibly dangerous, yet easily accessible. The majority of fatal accidents involve rollovers, collisions, or ejections, and nearly a quarter of all deaths involve children under 16. It doesn't matter how experienced you are with all-terrain vehicles or the environment you are in. There will always be that risk of uneven terrain, high speeds, lack of protective barriers, wildlife, pedestrians, and weather conditions. I know they can be safe in controlled environments, but there simply aren't enough measures in place to prevent accidents. I'm surprised by how many states have little to no regulations on all-terrain vehicle use, allowing children and unlicensed riders to operate them with minimal training. I'm not saying they should be completely illegal, but there absolutely need to be many more safeguards or a stricter enforcement of safety laws. Story 40. Advertising non-over-the-counter medicines, institutionalized lying, and not retesting to keep a driver's license. Story 41. A good 40% of cars and trucks I see on the road are lifted so high that their floor is flush with my roof. Their headlights are so bright that I cannot see anything else if they are in front of me. They are loud, touch screens are replacing anything with tactile feedback, and they are literally forcing you to take your eyes off the road. Story 42. Unregulated supplements. Unlike prescription drugs, many supplements are not properly tested for safety or effectiveness before reaching the market. Story 43. The Isle of Man Tourist Trophy. I am not criticizing it as I am a big motorsport fan. I also appreciate that it is in the blood of some of the riders like the Dunlops, and they are all aware of the risks. However, with multiple fatalities nearly every year, I am surprised it is allowed to continue in the safety-conscious, risk-averse age we live in. Story 44. It may sound stupid, but I think only trained people who do displays should have access to fireworks. The number of incidents in my area, where people are putting them through letterboxes and shooting them towards people and babies, resulting in life-threatening injuries, is insane. Story 45. Having someone committed to a nursing home is a significant decision. No matter the risks, if I want to stay in my house, that is my choice. It is my body and my life. Story 46. Riding motorcycles. If they were only invented now, there is no way they would be legal. Imagine a job advertised where you were traveling along a motorway at 100 to 120 kilometers per hour, wearing a small leather suit and a plastic helmet, surrounded by 2 to 36-ton steel vehicles traveling at the same speed, half of which are coming toward you. The health and safety regulations. Story 47. I watch Mount Everest videos frequently. It may be a questionable decision, but climbing a mountain, not Mount Everest, was a bucket list item for me. Climbing Mount Everest just because you can should not be a goal. Here is an interesting fact. Most of the people who die do so on the way down. They experience summit fever and push to the top without considering whether they have enough oxygen to make it back down. When they realize they do not, it is far too late. Story 48. I thought it was just my eyes, but the lights on every new car are so bright now that they are blinding. It's not just trucks and sport utility vehicles. It's on small cars too. I can't drive at night without experiencing post-flashing trauma. There has to be some regulation regarding these. I will sign one immediately. Does anyone know how to start this process? Story 49. Letting a convicted felon run for the office of President of the United States. Letting a convicted felon hold that office. Story 50. Donald Trump is allowed to run for President of the United States again. Even his first time was questionable. Story 51. Cigarettes and motorcycles. If they were invented today, there is no way they would be legal. Note: I am a smoker and motorcyclist. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.